Hello and welcome to Top TV. My name is Jordan, and we are talking the Severance Season 2 finale, Cold Harbor. This ended up premiering about 3 weeks ago, but I had, every time I've pretty much tried to set aside to record this, I had a lot of stuff going on. So unfortunately, it was delayed until now. I was hoping to get it out a lot sooner, but we had some very busy weekends, some very busy weeknights. So it's been a pretty crazy couple weeks here. And I think part of it was because it was the finale and there was no episode the next week. I kind of, in my mind, put it off for a bit, thinking, well, I don't have to rush out an episode before the next one comes out. So it ended up being 3 weeks before I found the time to sit down and talk about this episode. So if you were wondering and you're like, where is, did he not like it? Is he alive? I'm here. But yeah, so we pick up right where we had left off from. Well, let's talk about the stuff here. This is season 2, episode 10, called Cold Harbor, directed by Ben Stiller, written by Dan Erickson. It premiered March 20th, 2025, and it was a 76-minute long episode. The description, I don't actually know if I have that. Oh, it just says season finale. There you go. Season finale was the description on Apple TV. Okay, so we kind of pick up where we left off with the birthing cabin. And I think one of my favorite scenes of this whole episode really was the conversation between Innie Mark and Outie Mark. Having those two with the camcorder, the way it was shot, the way that we're getting pieces of the information, I thought was really, really well done and really interesting. I'd heard rumors, or like I think they said in the press, that like we get a conversation between two people, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's got to be Innie Mark and Outie Mark," and I'm like, "How would you even do that? Like, what is it about this cabin?" But it's a really simple answer, which is what I like too. It is a camcorder, and I like that it's a camcorder, not a cell phone. Like it fits that aesthetic a bit, without it being like taking a video selfie and then going back and doing it, like having it where you can like flip the screen, um which can kind of signify like Mark flipping as well. Like I really liked everything about the birthing cabin stuff. uh Mark Mark does make a mistake here. He is a little, I think, too condescending to any Mark, and it causes him to not buy into this plan for most of this conversation, right? At first, they're both like just marveling at how weird it is to see themselves talking and it not be something they remember, and being a separate person. But Mark makes a mistake here where he tells any Mark that he knows about Helene, getting the name wrong, kind of like how Helly got the name wrong um, at the Chinese diner with Mark, and saying Hannah instead of Gemma. And while that upset Mark, it obviously upsets Mark S here as well, because it is like you can't even get that name right. And that's where things, I feel like, really start to turn a bit in this conversation. And then he kind of keeps going down that path with saying, like, imagine what you have with her, and times it by 1,000 because we spent like 5 years together and all this stuff. It's hard for I understand where Outie Mark is coming from. Obviously, this relationship that's been longer is probably, they had those ups and downs. It probably was, you know, Mark S has really only had this relationship with Helly for maybe a couple weeks, right? We haven't really left winter yet either in the show, so it hasn't been long. Especially now that we know that like season 1 was not 5 months before season 2, right? When we get that in episode 2, and it seems to be only 48 hours after the events of season 1. So when you have that, um I can understand Mark's perspective here. I can also understand Mark S's perspective here as well. For as long as he knows, right? He's only been around for 2 years. for what, like 40 hours a week. Yeah, maybe he works a little bit longer some days, but let's say 40 hours a week times 52 weeks. That is 2,080 hours times 2. So he's about 4,160 hours in by the time we meet him in season 1. And if you divide that by 24 hours, he's lived approximately about 173 days. So you're looking at, and you could probably do different math for this because we're not awake every 24 hours either. So you could kind of do some more math to figure out maybe the more equivalent of the days. But if we put it basic terms like this, he's only been alive for 173 days total when you add up the hours. You know, in compared to Mark, Audi Mark, who's saying, you know, he was with her for like what, 5 years or so with Gemma. You know, if you do 365 times 5, you know, you're looking at closer to 2,000 days. So I understand both perspectives here, but when you're also looking at Mark S, and you know, he's only been around for maybe like I said, 100 some days. If you add up the time where Helly's coming, it's still like a fraction of those times, but it's a bigger fraction than you would think. And it's his first real experience with love, and that is a different feeling as well, I think, for Mark S. On top of all of this, you also have the fact that when you look at how Petey said about reintegration, right, and that reintegrating, the memories of his like early distant innie self seem as far back as his childhood. So if you equate that to, let's say, our real life as well, then Mark, it'll feel really recent and longer standing as well for Mark S having Helly than what Audi Mark sees that relationship as. So that was a mistake from him, getting the name wrong, kind of being condescending about love, and you know, imagine this, you know, like almost talking to him like he's a child. And I get that he, you know, is kind of a child. We're talking about somebody that's only been around 173 days, and if you want to even go to simpler terms, been around for 2 years. Like that's, you know, they obviously already know how to walk and stuff. It's not like they're a baby, but when it comes to real world experiences and stuff like that, they are still learning a lot of this stuff. The other mistake he makes is maybe he tries to leverage the reintegration a bit here. And Mark S properly calls this out of, if you save her, you really have no reason to continue reintegration. And Mark, you know, Audi Mark is like, no, I'll continue doing it. And I don't know. I don't know. I think he was a little convincing in that case. I thought Audi Mark did a good job at this part. Because I was kind of like, oh, maybe he would do that. But I think at that point, the trust was gone that even if he was telling the truth, which I don't think he would be. Once he has Gemma, I think that the plan's done, right? I mean, like, he might have to continue reintegration anyway because he already started it. That's the thing we don't know, is can you kind of just stop and everything go back to normal? We still don't know a lot about reintegration. So once this path was started, you know, does he have to keep doing the concoctions that Ragabi was giving him? Does he have to continue doing that? We don't know if that is something that has to continue, or if it's like, okay, we stop messing with it, he stops going in, there's no more need to have an innie, and it'll just kind of stop, right? Like, I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe that's something we will figure out in season 3. But for now, we don't know. I do think Mark S is right to kind of be hesitant here and say, I don't know, dude. I can't really trust you with this. And also the question of who are we really then? Is it real reintegration, or is it now you just have my memories or some of my personality, but like you still make up more than me? It's not me, it's you at that point. And that's a question we haven't really thought of. I've been kind of predicting, oh, maybe the goal of the whole show is reintegration and that everybody will be reintegrated and uh, kind of become a complete person again, and it'll be like seen as a positive. I'm not so sure now with the way that this reaction happens that that is the end goal, because Mark S brings up a good point here with that's still more you than me. And that's true. It's not something I really thought of. I was thinking of it making like two sides into one person, but it's probably more of like 7/8 and 1/8 of a person. And he could end up losing his identity as Mark S when he's fully reintegrated. And that's something that scares him. It's a ceasing to exist type of thing. So this is what I love the show for, is being able to have these, like, there's no other show that you can have a conversation between the same character that have totally, like, this doesn't happen, right? Where it's two people having a conversation, but they're both the same person having this conversation. Um, the closest I would say is something like Moon Knight, where you could have like the same actor playing different personalities of a body, but they were still like, while they are very distinct people in Severance, there's a lot of their same traits that come out in Mark S and Mark Scout. So it is a little different than, I would say, like Moon Knight, having different personalities or something like that. But yeah, this is what, and it's like the ethical debates that I love about this show. Are you being ethical with your outie, with your innie, all those type of questions? At the end of the day, any Mark agrees to the deal because Miss Cobell does have a conversation with him. It turns out she is the right person to have this conversation with him, and she says, if we look back at season 1, there is a conversation where he says, like, what do we do here? And Miss Cobell is very upset by it and kind of gives him a non-answer and upset with him. I think that might, I don't know if that's when she throws the thing at him or not, but she pretty much tells him to get out, right? In this episode, she actually tells him, you know what? Here it is. Here is what we do here. And the numbers are your wife, right? And that's now confirmed. The numbers he's been sorting has been like new tempers, personality for each new room that she's going into. So before, what we were thinking at after episode 7 is maybe he's getting information from, or like sorting the numbers, and they know what type of room to make. But I think it's more of like they make the room, and the new personality that she inhabits, which makes a lot more sense, is the thing that the room is. Cold Harbor is a room, but like the actual Cold Harbor he was working on was her personality that she is when she steps in. And I think that is really, really cool idea on what the numbers are. It really felt like one of those things that when I was watching season 1 3 years ago, you're like, I don't know if we'll like ever really get a good satisfactory answer for this and what this is, why they make you feel feelings and stuff. But Dan Erickson, I think, has knocked it out of the park with the reveal that Gemma is down there, which is something we got in this season, right? Like at the end of season 1, we did know that she was alive and was Miss Casey, but we didn't know what they were doing to her. We just thought maybe she was another innie down there. When it turns out that she is like the one on the testing floor at the end of like the first episode, right? When it's, or first or second episode, when they show the screen and we see the Cold Harbor file and we see that she's down there, that is when the theories really start going of what are they doing to her down there. And I think this plays in well with the numbers, and I think it all makes sense that if you go back and watch season 1 and you get to this point, it doesn't feel like something that's like, oh, that's kind of wildly out of place. Like it feels like a good answer, and that is, when I see people complain that at the end of season 2 we still have a lot of questions that are unanswered, I don't really get it. Like, I guess if you're looking for little answers, because there's sometimes where I see people's list of answers that they want, and some of those are just stuff that I don't think we'll ever get, and I don't think we should get. Like, some of them are just like I still see people asking, like, why is Miss Huang a child? And I'm like, because she's part of the Wintertide Fellowship. Like, that's been answered. She is like on an internship that Miss Cobell did. That's part of the reason we get the background with Miss Cobell. It answers Miss Huang stuff. Like, there's answers there, right? I think when you get big answers like this, we've had big questions since season 1 finale of, okay, Miss Casey's alive. She is Gemma. How do they get her out? I never thought we would get to this point of this season where we get her out, which is how the season ends. And that is really fantastic for what we can do going forward in the show now that it's been officially renewed for season 3. And they said it won't take 3 years this time, so we'll see. But like getting answers like what the numbers are, what they're doing at MDR, that is stuff we've got now in season 2 after just how many episodes? 10 episodes this season, 19 episodes of the show. We now already have the answer of that. Like, think about that in like long-term sense of like, don't think about it season by season. Think about episode by episode. And you have a show like Lost, which had 24 episodes in season 1, right? We've only had 19. And we've gotten some big, big answers over the course of this show. Of course, new mysteries continue to pop up, but we got the answer with the goats today as well. They are part of like this ritual sacrifice type thing, which was answered in this episode as well. We've gotten answers on what the testing floor is, which came up after, I guess, earlier this season or last season. We've got answers about the numbers. Gemma, she's alive. We got that at the end of season 1. Then we get the whole she's in Lumen on the testing floor. We've already got her out. Like, there's a lot of stuff that we hit in this finale and over the course of season 2 that I think some patience is required. I saw, it's been a very odd topic online this season. I've seen some people say that there should not be mysteries. They should explain everything right away, which I think maybe just watch a different show at that point. I've seen some, by the like midpoint of the season be like, but what does MDR do? And I'm like, I don't know, just give it time. And you know what? It came today, like, or a couple weeks ago in that case. And we know exactly what it is. And there's still, some mysteries here. I enjoy that type of thing. But we go ahead and Mark is going to help after talking to Miss Cobell because she tells him, tomorrow's your last day at Lumen anyway. Okay? Because if you complete Cold Harbor, it's done. Your purpose is done. And that makes me really curious on where we go in season 3 as well. Let's say even removing the fact that he runs off with Helly at the end. Let's remove that and just say he goes in and completes Cold Harbor, saves Gemma. What does he just look for a new job after that? Like, or is the INI really gone at that point? Let's say he would have completed Cold Harbor and not saved Gemma. What is their plan from then? Do they just say sayonara, or is they wipe him out too? Like, I don't know. Like, what's the end game here for Mark S and the rest of the INIs that they had? Because like Milchick was upset that Dylan was quitting, but it seems like it wouldn't have mattered. It was only a couple days later, unless if they were like, hey, we got another person we're going to test right after this or something, or there's other stuff MDR can do, but we just don't need Mark Scout anymore because of his connection with Gemma. I don't know. That's all very curious on how this would have continued otherwise, but and I know like the writers can write whatever they want and make it work. but just curious on what Lumen's plans were at the end of this day with the severed employees. Because it's not like the only batch of severed employees, right? Like we know that there are some MDR folks that we saw at the beginning of the season at other branches. Don't know if they're working on the same thing, somebody that they're related to or something, or if that was like the breakthrough they had here that the testing floors continued to kind of implement, and they were just, doing busy work as their own testing grounds type of thing. So Dylan returns. He does find that his Audi has responded to his request for resignation, and the Audi has actually said, "It's your choice." I thought this was a really great moment too. Like you have another conversation between an Indy and Audi, this time via paper through the resignation thing, and it's a little bit more positive. Where Audi Dylan says, "You know what? First of all, fuck you for trying to take my wife. Two, I get it because I love her too," type of thing. And then I like having you here. I like knowing you're there. You're excelling at something. It is, but it's up to you. And that is kind of the thing that differentiates Dylan and Mark. Now, of course, it's a lot different stakes. Mark S is dealing with a lot more stakes. So is Mark Scout here, where he's like, save my wife, right? But he doesn't really take the no for an answer, right? At some point, he yells out to Devin, like, he's a child, and Miss Cobell has to cut in. But in this case, Audi Dylan, allows Dylan G to make the choice. And I think Dylan G is going to stay. I think that's what he was doing. But then he also hears the commotion of the choreography and merriment band playing and the stuff going on there with the distraction that Helly is providing by locking Milchick in the bathroom. This was all I love the whole Milchick stuff. He comes in and he gives that letter to Dylan and just like sprints out. And I thought the first time I watched it, it was because of he was worried about how Dylan would react. But it literally is. He is like, I am running late. I gotta get to this thing. He just takes off. It is so funny. Tremella is so wonderful in the role. And I saw he's in the new Mission Impossible movie. So of course I'm going to see that because I've caught up on those. But I saw him in the trailer and I was like, Tremell Tellman is here. So that's awesome. Dylan has that great moment, but let's talk about Milchick and everything going on with him, because he has had this struggle this whole season so far of his unique perspective going in as an African-American male in a company that is dominated by, white men and Helena. But he's received weird, like, new canonized paintings of, Kier in his image, which is like a version of blackface, which did not sit well with Mr. Milchick. He didn't know how to react to that. He tried to have that conversation with Natalie and couldn't really get there. And then we get this where he is, put down for using big words. And we talked about that last week. And it comes up again here when he has to do the little intro with the Kier Egan statue. And, he ends up kind of getting some shade thrown at him from a statue. I really wonder how this works. Like, is there like a guy down on the testing floor or, wherever, who is like talking into a microphone, reacting to what Milchick is saying and acting like Kier Egan? Or is this like pre-recorded? I don't know. I doubt it's pre-recorded, the way that he responds to Mr. Milchick throwing it back at him, and he calls him Seth, and it really is like a, hey, I'm putting you back in your place type of thing from a statue, an animatronic. Ben Stiller, I think, does the voice for that. He does really good there. On the podcast, the official one, he was talking about that and how he loves animatronics because he likes Disneyland and all that, which is great. I love Disneyland and Disney World as well. So it gets that vibe. I feel like when you have the Kier Egan animatronic statue. But they do like this little bit where they're like, having a presentation, joking little show that they're doing before choreography and merriment comes in. And I just love the idea that this is somebody's life. How many days did I say Mark was alive? Like 143. I'm just imagining there's like the equivalent of living 143 days with how many hours you work, and it's just like playing trumpet or trombone and practicing for this moment, right? Now, of course, I've seen people be like, why would they even have a department of just this? Well, one, they probably want something like this for when they do like parades or special achievements like this, but there is also probably elements of testing, right? We're having employees who are, part of the severance procedure. We're going to see how this continues to work for them. We're testing this before we really go wide with this at all these other companies. Let's have them do something like this. And can we teach them how to play an instrument that maybe their Audi doesn't know? Let's see if that bleeds over. Like, there's tons of different things they can do with that. So I don't think it's as silly as some, but I do love this. And anytime Trammell is dancing like this as Milchick is a good time. But, Helly distracts Milchick, traps him in the bathroom. Dylan's going to help out and push the vending machine over there to block him in. And this allows Mark, once he is done doing his 100%, he's able to run out and try to get to the elevator. When he gets there, though, Drummond comes out and starts this brutal fight that he has with Mark. But Lorne, who is played by Gwendolyn Christie, is the one that kind of comes in and saves the day for Mark. So having that relationship from episode 3 pays off for him. And she gets to save her goat. She gets to save Mark. And now Mark takes like the cattle thing. I don't know what it really does. I guess it's like a gun type thing. But it takes Drummond, forces him to go down to the testing floor. And this, I was shocked, but I was also just amazingly laughing at this part where he is going down this elevator and he's about to turn into his Audi. He's like, now look, you're going to take my Audi there. And he like does that. But like with that change, his finger hits the trigger and he hits Drummond in the neck and he just starts bleeding out, gushing, and dies. And you're like, oh my God. That is one of those things where you don't think about it. You're like, okay, like they're doing it, they're going down. But you think maybe a little later, like, how do they never have any accidents with doing something mid-transition at the elevator or something? And then they did it, and it was a shocking moment I did not see coming. But I love the way that they make it work with his blood being on him and him using that blood on like the finger scan thing to get into Cold Harbor. And he goes in there and he sees Gemma, who is putting together this crib or taking it down. And they didn't really explain fully what Cold Harbor is. I know Dan Erickson said like there's still some stuff out there about it, but the broad stuff is there. And I think I'm okay with that. I've seen, in my opinion, what Cold Harbor is Cold Harbor is not just, because I've seen people say like, why, they've already done this test. She's been sitting with her husband. She's been, doing all this other stuff and has no real bleed over. I don't think that's the test. I think the fact that they highlight this is the 25th file. So this is like her 25th or 26th personality, because you also include Miss Casey, I guess, right? Like, is she 26? Is she 24? You know what I'm saying? Like, is she part of the 24 or is she part of not the 24? And that means that there's now 26 personalities. I don't really know how that works. Was Miss Casey always there? Or after Mark completed a file like Allentown, Well, we know Allentown's not that, but completed some sort of file that Miss Casey shows up upstairs. I don't know. But there's 25 or 26 personalities inside this Severance ship. And so I don't think the test is like, oh, it's just the darkest thing and seeing if it bleeds over. It's also on top of that of we have like 25 personalities stuffed in here. And the most traumatic thing, will this cause it to be too much and either bleed over or just not work, right? And we've also seen circumstances where stuff does bleed over, right? We saw it with Irving with the painting and his sleep deprivation. We saw it with Mark, with the candle and with sitting in front of Miss Casey. He makes the tree that Gemma's accident took place at. Those are things that are typically not going to bleed over if everything's working right. Now, obviously, it's not like he sees her and recognizes her, but there's still some deeper stuff here that is playing out. But she comes in, I would say still the chip failed here as well, because she trusts Mark instead of, the doctor talking to her through the speaker or Mr. Egan. Like, she trusts Mark, who's covered in blood, and he's like, come with me, we're married, all that kind of stuff. Gets her out of there enough to have her turn into Gemma. And they have that reunion. And that is something that I was like, will we ever get this? And we get it. And it's so good. And then they go back up the stairs. And this is another great scene, too, when they go up and they're kissing and making out. And then it turns into Miss Casey and Mark S. And she's just like, what is transpiring? And he gets her to the stairwell, gets her out of there, and then has to make the decision. Do I go out there and lose myself and become Mark Scout and have that happily ever after for my Audi? Or do I run off with Helly, who is now behind me, for however long we can make it before we're caught? And it's like the best of both worlds, I think, in this case, because you have. Was I frustrated with Mark? Yes, absolutely. I want to see Gemma and Mark reunited on the Audi side. But I think a lot of people that are being really pissed off at Mark S are kind of making Mark S's point about how Audis treat them, right there. There's a lot of people that believe that the Audi Mark matters more than any Mark. And it doesn't work that way. Mark S does what he does to help his Audi self and save somebody's life and says, here you go. There's your wife. But I can't go out there right now because I don't know if I'm ever coming back. So if I'm going out in style. I'm going to grab Helly. We're going to run through the halls. And one thing I really like that they do here is that they kind of transition it to that film look that we saw in episode 7 when Mark would have flashbacks of him and Gemma. And it's like that real love, true love. And now he's running off with his love and it turns into film. And it's almost like this good parallel here between the two Marks and their love. And I know that I think it was the cinematographers or the set people, the editors have said that the red is a big sign of true love in the show too. And, it turns red. We get the music playing and they just run off. And it makes me wonder where we go from here in season 3. Gemma's out there. I'm taking it she's safe. She didn't get recaptured. I think that would be a little. I think after she sees them run off, she's like, I got to get out of here. She probably takes off, goes to find Devin and Rickon. I think that'd be her best move at this point. And then when she can tell maybe Rickon and Devin what's going on, Rickon might actually drop the book deal, or could sabotage that a bit more. I don't know. But we have Gemma to safety. Now, if you're Lumen, what do you do with Mark? He was the one that was your hero, but he also just ruined everything. Do they capture him and try to make him a testing subject? Do they just try to kill him and somebody has to come in and save him. I think one thing that we didn't touch on right here is the Helly thing. Helly has her conversation with Jaime Egan, and he mentions that he sees Keir in her, not in Helena anymore. And that he's actually been trying to have children, which we learned about, right? To see if Keir is in them. He's not. He only sees it in Helly now. Interesting. So can she usurp Helena as the next CEO? Can she make changes? Can she leverage her position with Jaime Egan and say, you're not going to do anything to me? So as long as he's running off with Helly, I think he's probably safe, because James is trying to use her as like the next CEO, I think, right? He sees it in her now. So I think that is something to look at as well and look forward to and say, you know what, that might be a little, place that marker down for next season of something that we dive into in season 3 and explore. But yeah, I thought it was a very, very great final bit here to the season. The 76 minutes, pretty much sitting on my edge of my seat here, wondering, what are we going to do? Where are we going with this? And getting this really great finale, setting up some very interesting things on where can we even go from here with Lumen and with Severance as a whole. I doubt Mark is just going to be back working at the working at MDR. I don't think that's going to happen anymore, right? So that is that. I think we'll kind of wrap it up here. I'm not sure right now what I'm doing next. I know I've talked about doing Mr. Robot or Paradise and stuff, and I do have like the first season from of Mr. Robot now from the library. So if I get around to being able to watch that at any time, or if I just watch Paradise season 1 as well, I'll probably dive into doing season recaps, not episode by episode of those, just to give myself some time and some breathers here. I've also debated doing, Last of Us starts this week. I've debated doing some episodes about that as well. But I think we'll see. We'll see where it goes. Right now, I am super busy with a lot of stuff, but hoping to get back on here soon and talk some other TV that I love as well. If you want to find me on anything else, I do have a podcast that talks all like genre stuff, Soups and Sabers, where we talk right now doing Daredevil recaps for Born Again. We're going to be doing Andor season 2. So if you want to hear some Andor talk because you think it reaches that level of prestige TV, it's going to be over on our Soups and Sabers label over there. And then we also have we'll be talking about Superman and Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four this summer. So all that stuff's over there. If you like talking about or listening to people talk about soccer over on Stateside Soccer Show, I'm over there as well talking MLS and U.S. Men's National Team, all that good stuff. But otherwise, TopTVPod on all of our socials. Thank you all for watching and listening along with us, and we'll catch you next time when we talk some other great prestige television.